Yeah, now we're like, what were we talking
I mean,
about?
just the analogy of life as being in the flow, like the river of life,
Hmm.
which is a theme, we've both used in breathworks before. And
Absolutely.
and I love what you just said, which is something I really want to share, is that when we can have these moments where we say, "Oh, I'm out of the flow," or "I'm not in flow," but you're never not in the flow. And I just love
Yeah.
that. Like even when it feels crunchy, you're in the flow. This is what it this is how it's flowing right now.
Absolutely. And I've definitely had that mindset of it feeling like, oh, why is it hard right now? I must be out of alignment. I must be not in like the flow of the universe because it's difficult. And it's like, no, that's still part of it. Like that's part of moving through life is like hitting those challenges, knowing that you're still in the flow of it, but it's like, okay, this needs a little bit more attention right now. And then it's like once I can work with that and be with that, then it might ease up and I get to like float a little bit for a little while. And then I hit the next thing and I'm like, all right, what's this? All right, let's do this. Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
That's that's it.
Yeah.
That is the flow.
Yeah. What's just coming to me right now as you're saying that is it's very similar to thinking that thought, I'm not connected. I have to get
Mm,
into my breath work or my meditation and get connected again. And
mm,
there's no time that we're not connected. We're always connected. Like we are spirit embodied, like embodied spirit. So we can't not be connected. We can not be listening.
yeah. Not have the awareness.
Yeah, so it might be more accurate to say, I need to take some time to stop and listen to what I really need, or what I'm what next steps maybe would feel the most aligned for me.
Yeah.
But we've never been like abandoned, or spirit has not said, they're not listening, so I'll be over here. Just let me know when you want to reconnect. Like
Never. Yeah.
we're always guided, we're always loved, we're always moving with divine spirit, divine flow.
Yeah. And there's definitely
We can resist divine
absolutely.
flow.
Yeah.
So we were
Yeah.
just talking about that.
Yeah. Holding on to that rock for dear life on the river, like, no, I don't know what happens if I let go. Oh, this is good enough. I'm comfortable here. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
gotta let go. Otherwise, I mean, you can keep holding on, but eventually you're gonna get tired, or a big wave's gonna come, or a big current's gonna come, and it's gonna force you to let go. Like, do you want to do it with a little more ease, or do you want to be like forced into it? Like
Yeah.
Joe Dispenza talks about that a little bit. I can't remember the way he says it though. Something about just moving through these things with like more ease and with like a positive intention rather than yeah getting like knocked through it, because it's like you
Yeah.
gotta keep moving, you gotta keep moving through life.
Yeah, and that's really a lot of, what we're doing with breath work. It's like, can we bring our breath to this? Can we breathe through what we're experiencing when it feels really challenging, when we do feel like resisting
Oh man.
what's happening? Can we give ourselves breath to help us, just feel what we're feeling, and to take steps and move. Even, the breath will even help move the energy of the emotion that we're feeling if we're just getting present and giving what we're experiencing some breath.
Yeah, that presence is key. I feel like I speak a lot to that resistance part, especially at the beginning of guiding a breath work, because for me personally, especially when I first started doing breath work, there were so many times I just felt this resistance come up in me. It was things like my mind would just start going off. It'd be like, oh, do you have to do this right now? Maybe you could do it later. I have other things to do. I don't like this song. Oh, I don't like the way they said that. Can I do this? This is hard. My mouth is dry. Like I could go on, and I would just be like, wow, okay, you
Monkey mind.
know, yeah, absolutely. And there would be times like I would just be like, you know what? Yeah, I gotta do something else. And then other times where I'd be like, Lindsay, keep with it and just keep breathing. And eventually I would get over that hump and like find my flow with it, where it did feel like there was a little bit more ease with the breath. And I think because I've experienced much of that, I do speak to it a lot at the beginning for people coming into breath work, especially if they're like new to breath work. I just want to like normalize so much for them in that it's like, yeah, this is normal. Just keep going.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what we're saying with life in general, right? Like just keep going. You're gonna get through it.
Yeah. And it's okay, if you're in that moment in the flow and you're clinging to that rock and you're like, no, I don't want to let go. No. and, and you just don't feel that trust of what's going to happen when you let go and you aren't sure if it's going to like be okay around the other side and of this challenge that you're trying to move through. That, like you're saying, that resistance is really normal. So, sometimes you just have to, even if you can't like breathe to the other side of it in this moment, just allow yourself that space to be like, okay, I'm in resistance
Yep,
and I can allow this too. And if I need
absolutely.
to just stay in resistance, I'll just stay in resistance as long as I need to. Like, I'm just gonna allow that
Yeah.
because I find that, I mean, I can speak to this because I'm in resistance around something right now.
Yeah,
And so, just even giving myself permission to be in resistance, I think it feels like a deep breath. It feels like, oh, well, instead of saying I'm in resistance and I shouldn't be in resistance,
mm,
it actually feels a little bit more spacious to say I'm in resistance and maybe I should just allow that. Maybe I can just say, okay, this is okay too.
absolutely.
And I can, like, the smile is already coming a little bit onto my face, and I do feel a little bit more space for breath in my chest to allow myself to be where I am.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point to bring in is that presence, the allowing of whatever is actually present right now. And it's so easy to label something that we're experiencing and being like, well, this isn't what I should be feeling, and this isn't right. And I don't want to feel this. I want to feel something else. I mean, great that you could be aware of what you want to feel instead, but it doesn't mean like, oh, hurry up, resistance. I got to get through this so I can start like feeling the way I want to feel. And it almost feels like at times when we say like I shouldn't feel this way, that just builds the feeling that you're feeling because it's like,
Yeah.
hey, I need your attention. Please give me some space right now. And then when we're like, okay, this is really what's present for me. Okay, what is here within this? Like what gifts are in this moment and this experience and everything that I'm feeling? And then it's like you give that the space and like you said, oh, now that I give the space, I actually feel a little bit better. Feel that smile forming. It's like this is okay. I'm allowed to feel this way.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm experiencing resistance as unpleasant, A,
Yeah.
and something that there's a big should in there that, well, I should take this step
Mm,
that is going to be uncomfortable, but that like the letting go of the rock, that is going to move me to the other side of the resistance of this step.
yeah,
And so there's a big should in there. This, well, there's something I should do that I'm not doing. And
yeah,
it's as we're talking about this, I'm just realizing it's um taking me out of just allowing that experience of feeling the discomfort I'm feeling in just the resistance itself.
yeah,
Like just breaking it down before like that should, and before like what's on the other side, and saying, wow, what does this feel like?
yeah,
Like I'm in discomfort, and just saying maybe there's just something here to feel, to
yeah,
experience, like to be in the unknown of discomfort, because in that should of like I should do this thing that's going to get me to the other side, um it's the desire for like the imagined comfort on the other side,
yeah, absolutely.
you know. But yeah, there's like a big piece I'm realizing that's just like not being with what's present right now.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure there's some of that fear of the unknown, like what happens beyond this.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's, yeah. Yeah, that's a big part of it. But even
Yeah,
if I separate myself from the fear of like that,
right.
just being in this feeling of, um, yeah, just that resistance. I'm resisting something. Can
Hmm.
I just feel what resistance feels like?
Yeah,
Yeah.
coming to that like felt sense and that meditative state of just like, where am I feeling this in my body and what is that sensation? And like really giving it your full
Yeah.
presence. Like,
Yeah.
ooh, what does that feel like? I mean, we can, I think a lot of times, like you were saying, kind of on that surface level, it can be like, oh well, it feels uncomfortable and I don't like it. But like how often do we really go into it? And you're like, okay, here I am. Tell me, what do you want to communicate to me? What am
Yeah.
I feeling in my body? What does my body have to say to me right now?
Yeah, because it does go back to what you were saying at the beginning, which is this is the flow. Like it doesn't, like it feels like a moment of non-movement, where that I could define as disconnection, or I could define as being out of the flow.
Yeah,
But if we're never out of the flow, then dropping in, dropping into that felt sense, dropping into this present moment is 100% part of the flow.
yeah. Lets you maybe even create some some ease within the process without those shoulds of like, I shouldn't be feeling this. And you're like, no,
Yeah,
okay, I'm gonna be with it. And then that again might create a little bit of ease. And then that kind of clarity of mind or that ease or that just relaxing into the space a little bit more probably helps you at times like find a solution that actually feels like the right move to make. You
yeah,
know, we kind of get out of the mind a little bit, which can tell us a lot of stories, as we know. Drop into the body and then be like, okay, what's the best direction to take? That's actually kind of been a tool that I've used at times when I'm making a decision where it's like I'll just like sit for a moment and breathe and then I'll like hold, one option over here, and then I've got another option, and then so I just connect with my body, and then I'm like, okay, how does this option feel? And I just am really present with what is coming through. And then I'll do it with the other one. How does this option feel? And then sometimes I notice, um, sometimes it's more subtle than others, sometimes it's stronger. It depends on what I'm working with. But, if it's something where I'm like, I feel myself kind of perking up and my shoulders moving back, or I get goosebumps, I'm like, whoa, okay, that feels like a yes to me, or that feels like the right direction. Or if the other one's kind of like, oh, I'm feeling myself slouch in my shoulders or hunching, or I just feel a drop in my energy, then I'm like, oh, maybe that's the no, or that's not the direction I should go. But it's one tool, to
Yeah.
kind of bring in with, especially if it's a big decision. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna think about the things. You should still use your mind, um, but then see what the
Yeah.
body says.
No, I always love checking in with my body as part of the decision-making process. It feels at this point in my life really essential to how I make decisions.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that, years ago, I kind of started, before I really understood this process of the felt sense, I started with just simple things like muscle testing, where you
Yeah,
push on a finger, like however you decide it is, like the finger holds and it's a yes, and the finger drops and it's a no. So I did that years ago when I first learned about muscle testing.
that's one I want
And
to play with a little bit
it's
and understanding.
another way of tapping into the wisdom of the body. So there's a lot of little great hacks and tools to check in with the body like that.
Yeah. Do you have any other that are coming to you? I'm just curious, or was that
Well,
the main?
another one I've used is it's a similar thing. It's muscle testing, but it's standing.
Okay.
So you stand and just relax your body and you say, "Body, show me a yes." Well, actually, there's a step back that I've done. So, first of all, you tell yourself something that's true and something that's not true. So, it's all about finding the yes and the no that works for you and for your body. So,
Right.
standing relaxed, your knees are not locked, but they're not like totally bent.
Yeah.
And and you say something like, "My name is Kristi." So, that's obviously true. So you just notice, does your body feel any particular way?
Yeah.
Does your body move in any particular way? Just notice what you feel. And then I would say, my name is Lindsay. And then I would just do the same thing. Does my body feel or move in any particular way when I say something untrue?
Okay.
Then you do the same process for, you say, body, show me a yes. And
Okay.
then again, just notice. Body, show me a no. And just notice. And you might have to do it a couple times. The first time I did this, it was really clear. When it was a yes, my body stayed kind of straight, but just physically started to rock forward. And
Mm-hmm.
when my body was a no, my knees just kind of automatically buckled a little bit, like I would lose a little strength.
Interesting.
So that that became my yes and no. And then usually if I'm going to test something before I test it using that technique, I will just start with show me a yes, show me a no, just to
Yeah.
remind my system that
Calibrate.
calibrate. Exactly, it's a calibration.
Yeah. I love that you used that example because there was just one time that basic technique like came to my mind. Like no one had told me about it, but I was like, well, I mean, I've utilized feeling into what sensations are coming through, and I thought about that. It's like, oh, what if I stand here? And to me, it was like if I'm moving forward, that felt like a yes. If I felt kind of pushed back, that felt like a no. And So it's like, that's, I feel like it's one of those things that's like it's out there in like the collective consciousness, and I just like grabbed that thought, and it's like I didn't nobody told me about it, but I was like, this is, real thing, because I've had other people say the same thing. So I was like, oh, I just grabbed that thought out there and utilized it. And yeah, God, it's just so amazing like what our body can tell us when we really tune in. It's like
Yeah.
so powerful. It's so incredible that part of me is like, man, why did I know this sooner in my life?
Yeah, and what that says to me ultimately is that in our hearts, in our bodies, we know.
Yeah,
We know what's right for us. We know like the next best step to take. We know what's in our highest good. It, what we know is in our highest good is not always the easiest path
for
or
sure.
even the path of least resistance.
Absolutely.
Sometimes making the changes in our lives that are in our highest good are the most challenging paths to take. So there's a school of thought that says, oh, if you're following your intuition and making these right decisions for your highest good, that your life is just gonna start to flow and be so easy. But that's not true when you're making big changes. And
Yeah, I
so the best decision is just not always the easiest decision.
think that's a really
Um,
important point. It really is.
so I
Um,
say that for, myself, and then I say that for our community to hear if you are struggling with a decision, just know that what's in your heart to do if you feel like um, people, your loved ones, your friends, your family are going to have a reaction, that someone's going to get hurt, that that your decision's going to impact other people's lives. Of course, we don't make those decisions lightly,
no, not at all.
but and then if there are people that are impacted, I would definitely say those are conversations to have.
Absolutely.
um,
Open, honest.
yeah, but it doesn't mean because someone's going to be upset or someone's going to resist you moving through the world in a different way that's more aligned for you, that it's the wrong decision.
Right. And people can definitely be attached to, what their family and the close people in their lives think, and that's understandable. But, sometimes other people are stuck in their own patterns where they're like, no, no, if you change, that means something has changed for me. And I don't, that does, makes me uncomfortable. And it's like, well, sometimes those difficult things have to happen. And you have to be like, but I am at a point where I do have to look out for my highest good. And this change is necessary for me to move forward. And that can be incredibly challenging. And it's just, as you were speaking to, I was thinking, coming back to that theme that we were talking about that feels really alive for me and you is trust. And, just trusting that you are in the flow, that even if things feel difficult, that things are still moving, and trusting in yourself that whatever challenge you're faced with, you can get through it.
Yes,
And there's trust is big. Like,
it
how do we
is big.
when we just don't know what's going to happen? And that's the whole point. You don't know what's going to happen.
Right. I think the trust we anchor into is the trust in ourselves
Yeah.
and in spirit, in our divine selves, in our divine connection, that however you work with that spiritual relationship, um, that your guides, your angels, your guardians, they have you.
Yeah.
That life has you and that you have you. Like
Yeah.
if you are tuning into your heart and really saying, wow, this next step is the thing that feels so aligned for me and so in my highest good. And I feel like this is the guidance I'm getting when I pray, when I meditate, when I do breath work, whatever your practice is, then that's where the trust comes from because the world is going to swirl. Like
Always.
the world is an unpredictable place
Yeah.
with multiple, like there are all kinds of different agendas and intentions that are happening all around us.
Yeah.
So we're not, by aligning with divine guidance, aligning with our own highest selves, we're not, we can't control what happens around us, but we
Yeah.
can control our choices and we can control um, our reactions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or I would say even not reactions are more in the category of what happens as a unconscious response. I would say we can control how we respond. Like when we're
Yeah.
in a centered, just a languaging thing, like when I'm in a centered place and feeling grounded and and breathing through, even if my nervous system, I'm starting to notice my nervous system becomes activated,
Hmm.
I'm still in a place where I can respond.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I lose that connection to my breath is usually when I go into reaction.
Yeah. Taking that time to just take a breath and connect back in. It's like, okay, how do I want to respond to what's happening? And I mean, that takes practice.
Oh my
For
gosh,
sure.
yes.
It's a lot of self-awareness, and that is a daily practice. And the more you do it, the easier it gets in certain situations. And then you might be faced with another one where you're like, oof, I was a little more reactive than I wanted to be. That's another area I can work on bringing more self-awareness in. And I was thinking maybe we should or could. I'm like, not should, no more shoulding. Right? Like I catch myself saying certain things. I'm like, "Oof, I don't like the way that felt. Let's shift that."
Right.
I was just thinking we could create a nice meditation for our community around um, practicing self-trust because there are so many people that are so far away from trusting themselves because of how they were brought up or never felt like they could trust in their own opinion because someone always told them that they were wrong or whatever. Like there are a lot of people out there that I see that don't really trust themselves. And I was just thinking, oh, it might be nice for us to make a meditation around developing that and practicing more and getting in touch with that inner part of us, that our hearts, and beginning to start to trust ourselves a little bit more. And
I love that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's been a big journey for me, and I think
sure.
it's something that I continually remind myself of
Yeah. Oh,
to
yeah.
say when I'm struggling with a decision, hey, you are not going to do something to sabotage yourself. Like you know yourself well enough now to know that that's not how you operate. But I can remember times when I didn't really know, like when I was making decisions, is this in my highest good? Like I don't even know. I have no clue. So it
Yeah.
is definitely, so I love that idea. It's definitely something that can be cultivated and that you can put
100%.
attention on and start really thinking about what are my values, what what are the things that are most important to me in life, what are the ways in which I feel most aligned how do I take care of myself in ways that feel aligned for me?
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's just knowing little things like some people are introverts and some people are extroverts. So if you're an extrovert, you can get a lot of energy from being around other people.
Yeah,
An introvert, this is like such a sweeping generalization, but I'm just going to
absolutely.
say
Yeah.
like
It's an easy one.
and just like broadly speaking, because there's
Yeah.
so many nuances to this, an introvert um, can replenish themselves and get a lot of energy by spending time alone.
Yeah.
So it's just starting to parse things out and saying, hey, these are the types of things that feel really good to me. These are the ways I like to live my life.
Yeah.
And then you start to build trust with yourself by anchoring into knowing yourself really well.
I was just about to say that, by knowing yourself, that's really what it's about. It's like you begin to understand yourself from your own perspective. And then you're like, oh, okay, all right. I'm starting to like form a relationship with myself. And, for me, it helped me the more went hand in hand with it really was like the more I trusted myself, the more confident I became. The more confident I became, the more I trusted myself. So it was sort of this, like, I don't know, beautiful marrying of these two things where I feel like when I was younger, it was constantly like, well, what do I do? And, part of that's maturity too, of course, but I did feel like not very confident growing up and always thought somebody else should tell me what I needed to do or, what decision to make. And then I was like, well, wait, no, okay. Well, how does it feel to make my own decisions? What happens when I do trust myself? And sometimes it is kind of like, let's see what happens, and okay, that's what happened. All right. And then you start to build on that and trust yourself more and more and more based on your experience from that.
Yeah,
It's key to start knowing yourself, being like,
definitely.
do I
Yeah,
like?
and there's always trial and error, We're
Oh yeah,
like I do not doubt that I will make a quote unquote wrong decision in my future.
right. I'm always gonna get it right. Perfect.
All my decisions are correct all the time.
All the time. Yeah, never. It's all perfect.
So, yeah,
Right.
it's also and
But
it's
it
also
is all
just like
perfect.
that's the thing. It is all perfect. So it's like, okay, was it a wrong decision? Maybe it was a decision that in hindsight I could say, hmm, maybe I wouldn't do it the same way the second time, but also what did I just learn from this? Because
Exactly.
I haven't found a life scenario yet where I haven't been able to look back and say, well, because I did this, I learned this about myself. I learned this about life. I gained
Right.
this skill. I, learned something more about, what feels aligned for me. There's
Yeah.
always something.
And we have to have that contrast, you know?
Yeah.
The contrast exists for a reason of us to be like, oh, I know what it feels like to not feel great. So now I know what it feels like to feel great. Or I can move in that direction. And
And what are the things that contributed to the not feeling great? And what are the things that contributed to the feeling great? Can I
yeah,
bring more of those and less of the not feeling great?
yeah. There's always something to learn. Whether we make a decision that we're like, yeah, okay, heck yeah, that was a great one. And you're like, all right, now I have that guidepost. And then other ones where you're like, oh, okay. Not my favorite choice,
Yeah,
but
or even in
okay.
hindsight, you might see like, oh, well, when I was making that decision, there are people I could have looped in and had
Yeah,
clear communication with, or,
yeah.
just different choices you could make that could have made um, ways you were moving in the world flow with more ease. let's
Absolutely.
say.
I like that. I think we're always like aiming to, have an easeful, time. We're looking to have a joyful time, and that's what it's about. We should be having a joyful time, and most of our
I
time should feel a little bit more easy, I feel like.
totally believe that, there can be a baseline of ease, of
Absolutely.
joy, of peace, like inner peace, outer peace. We can cultivate our lives to have these qualities. And when the world happens and we run into challenges or situations that um, we respond to with anger or pain or sadness, that doesn't mean that these baseline levels of ease or joy or satisfaction with life disappear.
Right.
We have them to support us as we move through the challenges.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think everybody does have that kind of like standard baseline. And I also think it can be, for someone who maybe has like a low baseline, I really do believe they can like bring that up through
Completely. That's the
practice.
work. That's the work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's an ever expanding baseline. We don't just have like, oh, this is my baseline.
Yeah,
It's pretty low, but nothing I
that's
can
how I am.
do. That's where I operate from. No,
That's
it's
just
like as
how I
we,
am.
yeah, as we learn about ourselves and continue in our practices and in our growth and expansion in life, we definitely raise that baseline. And I believe my intention, my plan is to always expand my capacity to
Hmm.
feel love, expand my capacity for joy,
Yeah,
expand my experience of peace, inner peace, outer peace. Absolutely.
'cause why not? I mean, why wouldn't you want? Why wouldn't you want to feel the most joy and the most happiness? Like, why not strive for that?
There is no cap on
There
these
really
things.
isn't.
So it's not like, I'm working to feel joy and then I'm going to get to that joy spot and then that's the maximum joy. That might be the maximum capacity I have for joy in that moment,
Yeah.
but who's to say in an hour or a day or a year where that maximum capacity is? It could blow that joy point out of the water.
Of that because it really opens it up to anything is possible. Like there's any possibility. And when we say, well, this is my baseline, whether it's like mediocre, whether it's already good, whether it's way down, we're limiting ourselves that to to it not to it just being that. And I believe anything is possible. Anything is possible if we allow ourselves to believe that, then we can go wherever we want to go, feel however we want to feel.
Yeah.
Why not
Yeah.
feel our best?
We're creator beings, you know. We get to create ourselves, our lives in the
Hmm.
way that feels the best and the most aligned for us.
Yeah. The more I am practicing manifestation and law of attraction, the more excited I get by it, because I'm like, well, what happens if I continually strive to raise my vibration up and feel good? Like, what beautiful gifts will flow into my life? Like, it's just fun right now because I'm like, oh, let's see what happens. Like, it's just it's
Yeah.
enjoyable. It's
Yeah.
enjoyable. And even if a challenge does come, it's like, okay, here we are. How can I view this from, trusting in the highest good and trusting in that flow again, bringing it back? Like,
Yeah. Trusting in yourself to have the capacity to move through the the difficult feelings, the
mhm,
difficult, things we move through in life. Like life has big challenges. And I know that neither one of us want to imply in any way that as you do this work, the challenges disappear.
Um,
This isn't about spiritual bypass. Like,
not at
this is
all.
about creating just this deep capacity and trust in yourself so that you're trusting that you have the strength and the compassion, the self-love to move through all these things, to
Yeah.
feel the difficult feelings and face like, the things that aren't working for you in life, the the patterns of behavior, the old thoughts, like doing that kind of work is big work.
It
It's
can.
not
Important.
yeah, it's not just like, oh, it's so easy to face the the things that aren't working
Yeah.
in me.
Yeah. I mean, I think what we're promoting is the opposite of bypassing. It's like, no, you should definitely work with that. Like, that sort of like, oh no, everything's love and light and everything's all good. Like, great, love and light's fantastic, but you can't experience the full capacity of all of that until you really work with what is happening inside you that might be
Yes.
causing that resistance or the pain or whatever. And I love
Yes.
about breath work too, and meditation and felt sense is like that. Go right into it.
Yeah, I love what you just said, that you can't experience the full capacity of love and light if you're not feeling the fullness of everything that's within you and, move those experiences through you.
Yeah, and an image that came to me as you were saying that too, it's because all the pain or the trauma or whatever's inside you that you're not dealing with, it's anchoring you down from experiencing that. And I sort of imagined this person wanting to like reach for all this like beautiful love and light, but there's this chain just like, no,
Mm.
you're not going that far. I'm gonna pull you right back down. It's like, no, no, leave me alone. It's like, nope. All right, time to turn around, work with that so that you can expand.
That's such a good visual.
Yeah,
Totally.
it's like literally popped in my head.
Yes. Yeah, I feel that so much. That's like exactly what it is. It anchors that capacity to go further into all the beauty and light of life.
Mhm. And that's part of
Mhm.
it. Part of it is dealing with the shadow. But I don't even want to say dealing with the shadow. It's working with the shadow. It's loving the shadow. It's creating space for the shadow because that is part of us, and that part of us that deeply needs love and compassion. And it's like, oh, we oftentimes want to avoid it, but it's like, oh, this is a part of us that just wants some attention, some love, some care. Can we like soften with it and really love that part of us?
Yeah, I think that's a good description of the shadow for anyone who's listening that hasn't done shadow work or doesn't recognize that term.
We'll go into more.
But just as a quick,
Yeah.
primer, shadow work is, yeah, going into those places um, that we often keep unseen or that we don't see, that we kind of have blinders to, that may be limiting um, our experiences of ourselves, our life, our love. And so shadow work is kind of going into those dark unseen corners and saying, "Hey, I can love you too. What's here? Let's look at this. Let's bring this into the light."
Yeah. I love that. I like smiled when you said, hey, I can love you too. So true. I think it's yeah. There's like I feel like there's multiple like cartoons or drawings that I've seen where there's this depiction of the shadow as this big scary monster, and then you're trying to like run from it, and then when you like turn around and face it and like love it, it gets smaller. I'd have to find one, but they're so powerful because it's so true. It's just getting bigger because we're running from it, and we turn towards it and love it, and it's like, oh, that's what I needed.
Yeah, I heard, I can't remember where I read this analogy, but it's like walking into a dark room and you scream because you think you see a snake in the middle of the room and you're like, "Oh my God." And then you go and flick on the light and you realize it's just a coiled rope.
Oh, that's a good one.
And so, sometimes shadow work, when you look at something, you realize it's just a coiled rope. Sometimes there's a snake there and you need to just like
Yeah,
lovingly release it out into the wild.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, but it's important to not just imagine the snake, walk out, lock the door, and then never go back into the house again.
Right, right. That's what's like anchoring us down to not fully living in our beautiful home. If we want to go with that analogy some more, you're like, oh, can't go in that room. There's a big snake in there. I guess I won't use that one for the rest of my life. Well,
Right, I'm
the
just
whole
sleeping on
freaking
the
room
porch
in your
now.
house. What?
I'm just, I said, I'm just sleeping on the porch now. It's fine. It's
There's
fine.
too many snakes in my house. I'm gonna sleep on the floor. I mean, but in a sense, like that's what we do sometimes.
I'm crying.
Got this gorgeous mansion that you could, just thrive in, but you
Yeah.
lock yourself out because you think there's a bunch of snakes in these dark rooms, and really
Yes.
they're just a bunch of like cords on the floor, that you could plug in and listen to some beautiful music, or I don't know.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
I
I'm such a visual person, so I end up like really picturing this stuff in my mind.
am too. I love analogies because, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very visual as well. So it helps me really,
Yeah.
you know, see things a little bit more for what they are.
I wish I was someone that could, could draw well or paint well. And not to say I couldn't work on that. It's just not my first natural ability, but there have
Right.
been so many times the things I see I wish I could put into a painting or a drawing. But maybe that's just not my expression of it. Mine could be words, it could be whatever.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I'm still a creative person that can express those images in a different way.
Yeah, definitely. But
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully that helps for those listening to our pictures and laughs.
Oh, if somebody wants to draw that or paint that, I would love to see it.
That
Someone
would
who
be
just has
beautiful.
that ability, and you can picture what we're talking about. I want to see it as a drawing or a painting. I think it'd be really beautiful, actually.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Send it out to the community, share it with us.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that was really what was present for us today. The themes of flow, of trust, of loving the shadow,
Yeah.
working with it.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a lot more that we can expand on with each of these topics, but I feel like that's such I don't know, a good space to kind of start playing with those ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Beautiful. Good place to sign off.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as always, we love you. We're sending so much love. And we'll see you next time.
Mm, sending all my love.